On March 24th, 2026, I sat down at the SHIELD Protocol 14.0 workstation and asked a question. What does Enoch 57, verse 2, mean for the end times today? Later that same evening, I asked a second question. Father, burst forth your prophecy today for Enoch 57:2. Both draws pulled 50 cryptographically random verses from the Urim-Thummim version corpus of 34,211 verses. Both draws produced Dominion Triad convergence at 4.33 sigma. Both registered extreme anomaly on the guidance detection indicator. The second draw had 5 of 12 signal streams survive false discovery rate correction, a Bayes factor of 664, classified as decisive, and a polarity balance index that crossed into statistically significant affirmative territory. I locked the pre-registration for Draw 1 at 4:44 p.m. Pacific Time on March 24th. The pre-registration for Draw 2 was locked at 5:25 p.m. I recorded the results. I built the report. And then, at 6:32 p.m. that same evening, ABC News published an article with this headline: Significant storm heading toward Middle East amid Iran war, forecast show. I want to walk you through what that article says, and then I want to lay it next to Enoch 57:2 and the draws, and let you see what I see. The ABC News report describes what forecasters are calling a quite anomalous storm moving through the Middle East this week. The impacts extend from Israel and Lebanon across Syria, into Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran. It enters Israel on Wednesday, peaks Thursday into Friday, and does not clear the region until Saturday. The expected impacts include widespread flooding rains, severe thunderstorms with tornadoes, hail, and winds over 60 miles per hour. Habubs, massive dust storms, could roll across the Arabian desert. Flash flooding is expected, potentially over an inch of rain in locations where the annual average is only 3 inches. And it is arriving over a region under active military operations since February 28th, including joint U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran and retaliatory Iranian strikes on Gulf state energy infrastructure. Wind, sound, shaking, war, flooding, and an anomalous disruption of normal conditions, all converging over the same geography in the same week. Now let me read Enoch 57 to you in full. It is only 3 verses in some translations, 5 in others, but the core is this. Verse 1. And it came to pass after this that I saw another host of chariots with men riding on them. And they came upon the wind from the east and from the west to the south. Verse 2. And the sound of the noise of their chariots was heard. And when this occurred, the holy ones observed it from heaven, and the pillars of the earth were shaken from their foundations. And the sound was heard from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven throughout one day. Verse 3. And all will fall down and worship the Lord of spirits. And this is the end of the second parable. In the Charles translation, a parallel passage at verse 4 adds this. The sound of the thunder is for peace and for blessing, as well as for a curse, according to the word of the Lord of spirits. Chariots on the wind from the east and the west. Sound that shakes the pillars of the earth. Heaven watching. And the resolution, worship, and a sound that carries both peace and curse. That is the text. Now let me lay the draws next to the storm. First, the chariots. Enoch describes chariots riding the wind from east and west. The ABC article describes a storm system moving across a region filled with active military operations. The modern chariots, the fighter jets, the missile systems, the drone strikes are already there. And now a literal wind is moving over them. The ancient image and the modern reality occupy the same geography in the same week. Second, the sound and the shaking. Enoch says the pillars of the earth were shaken from their foundations. The article calls this storm quite anomalous. Flash flooding in regions that receive 3 inches of rain per year. Tornadoes in the Arabian Peninsula. Habubs reducing visibility across the desert. This is not a routine weather event. It is a shaking of the normal order. Third, the timing. I locked the pre-registration for Draw 1 at 4:44 p.m. on March 24th. The ABC article was published at 6:32 p.m. on March 24th. The draws were completed before the article existed. I did not know about this storm when I sat down to ask the question. The question was about Enoch 57:2 and peace. The storm showed up on its own. Fourth, the water. Draw 1 surfaced rest, dwelling, and peace in 11 verses, and covenant faithfulness in 12. Draw 2 surfaced a thread that was absent from Draw 1, water, spirit, and outpouring, in 8 verses. That thread appeared only in the second draw. And now a literal outpouring, an anomalous flooding rain, is forecast over the exact region where war is being fought. Fifth, the appointed season. Timing and appointed season appeared in 14 verses in Draw 1 and 12 in Draw 2, the second most prominent thread across both draws. The draws were not asking about weather. They were asking about peace. Yet the timing thread kept surfacing, as if the corpus was marking something calendrical, something with a schedule. I need to be careful here, and I want you to hear me say that. I am not claiming that the SHIELD protocol predicted this storm. I am not claiming that the draws are a weather forecast. That is not what the system does. What the system does is draw cryptographically random verses from a fixed biblical corpus under prayer-guided conditions and measure whether the resulting sample deviates from randomness in structured, repeatable ways. What I am saying is this. The text I asked about describes chariots on the wind, sound that shakes the earth, and a resolution that includes both peace and curse. The draws, completed before the article was published, produced statistically extraordinary convergence around covenant faithfulness, priestly order, appointed timing, and water and outpouring. And then, hours later, a news report described an anomalous storm arriving over a war zone in the exact region where Enoch's vision is geographically anchored. The draws said the prospect for peace is affirmative but conditional. Peace through priestly order, not political arrangement. Shaking that precedes rest. A word that does not return empty. The storm does not contradict that message. If anything, it illustrates it. The sound of the thunder is for peace and for blessing, as well as for a curse, according to the word of the Lord of Spirits. Both at once, in the same place, in the same week. Enoch chapter 57 ends the second parable, the section of 1st Enoch devoted to the Messiah, his nature, and his work. It ends with everyone falling down and worshiping the Lord of Spirits. The shaking is not the final word. The chariots are not the final word. Even the storm is not the final word. The final word is worship. And the sound that fills the space between the ends of the earth and the ends of heaven is a sound that carries peace for those who are in covenant and consecration. The draws said it. The text said it. And now the sky over the Middle East is saying it too. This is Dallas James, Heart's Two Fathers Publishing, Royal Levitical Priesthood Ministry.